my brain slowly shifts away from being an optimistic wonderland of creativity and productivity to a bowl of mashed potato. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tara East. I'm a writer, blogger, YouTuber, and the author of the mystery novel Every Time He Dies. So like last year, I'm going to be dressing up for the whole month of October in costumes for each of my videos, and I'll have this little Halloween display happening in the background. So for today's video, this is basically my slack attempt at a Little Red Riding Hood outfit. So, hopefully it passed muster. What I'm going to be talking about in today's video is 7 tips for proofreading. So I'm currently about to conduct the final pass on a book that I've been working on for the past 3 years. Now the book isn't about to get published, don't get too excited. I'm about to just submit it as part of my dissertation. Trust me though, when the book is coming out in real life, you'll be the first people to know, or maybe the second or third. While I have read the full manuscript numerous times, I'm yet to perform an actual proofread. So the reason why is because proofreading is the final step in the writing process. Think about it. There's really no point in fixing all of your typos, missing words, and grammatical or punctuation errors until you are certain that you are happy with the story at the structural level and at the line level. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my quick tips for conducting a proofread. So tip number 1, less is more. Details are not my strong suit, and proofreading is all about the details. It requires a high level of concentration to perform a good proofread on a book, and for that reason, I plan on editing in short bursts of maybe an hour or less. Basically, as soon as I feel myself starting to get distracted, reading too quickly, or if I feel that my attention is starting to wane, then it's a good time to call it a day, or at least call it a day for now and maybe come back to it a little bit later. Tip number 2, paper. So I plan on doing this proofread on paper rather than the screen. So we're all well aware that we tend to skim read when we're looking on screens and that we absorb a lot more when we read on paper. The bonus here is that by editing on paper, I'm also eliminating all of the other distractions that come along with working on a computer. So social media, emails, the internet in general, that sort of stuff. I'm also more likely to identify and to recognize errors because it's easier to control my reading speed when I'm editing on paper. Which brings me to my next point. Tip number 3, slow and close reading. So I have read this novel, of course, many, many times. And for that reason, I'm now totally blind to its inconsistencies and errors. I'm so familiar with the work that it has become very fixed in my mind, and it is as if it is already finished and published and out in the world. That's how it feels to me. The reason why you need to take breaks between writing and editing is because our brain will often insert missing words, it'll skim over errors on the page because we know what we meant to say, even if we didn't actually say it on the paper. To conduct a slow and close read, I will literally be reading the novel a sentence at a time to ensure that I don't rush ahead. And how I'll maintain this slow reading speed is by using a ruler or a sheet of paper that I then move down the page as I read so that my eyes are only concentrating on a sentence at a time. And this will stop my eyes from reading ahead or even paying any kind of attention to the next sentence. So in the spirit of slowing down, I'll also be reading the work out loud. In particular, this will help me to identify any awkward phrasing, missing words, or incomplete sentences. Though this read will primarily be focused on identifying errors within the text, reading aloud will also allow me to check the rhythm of the story, and that's really important to me personally. Tip number 4, physical comfort. Now this may seem silly, but it's actually very important that you are physically comfortable when you're doing this proofread. I mean, you should be physically comfortable when you're writing or doing any kind of work at a computer, but the reason why it's especially important in a proofread is because you don't want any additional distractions happening while you're trying to do this fine, detail level work. So you don't want to be distracted by an uncomfortable chair, a too hot room, or a puppy who is chewing the cable on your computer. You would never do that, would you, Juniper? Oh no, Mama, I would never choose the cable. You might not know this, but Juniper is French. Not the name, just the dog. If you do choose to edit your work on paper, then make sure you set yourself up in a way that is going to be comfortable and not cause any major harm to your body. So we don't want to put your neck out or cause round shoulders. If you do choose to read on paper, then make sure you set yourself up in a way that's ergonomical so that you don't put your neck out or cause yourself to have sore shoulders. You don't need to be the Hunchback of Notre Dame in order to do a good proofread. Tip number 5, breathing space. So as I mentioned before, it can be easier to edit your own work when you've placed some distance between you and the last draft or the last round of edits that you've performed. So in my opinion, if you can, it is ideal to have a break between the structural edit and the copy edit, and then another break before the proofread. Now, if you're doing your edits and there's something that you notice that you want to pay attention to for the next round, certainly make a note depending on how big the thing is, or you can fix it right there on the spot. But again, it is essential to have these breaks as a way to defamiliarize yourself from the narrative. So tip number 6 is look out for your tics. So if you've been writing for a while, then you might already be aware of some of the words or phrases that you typically use all the time. During the proofread, it is important to look out for these tics as they can become grating for the reader if they appear in the text too often. So for instance, some of the words that I use all the time are turning and towards. In all of my stories, the characters are turning or going towards something. Another weird habit I have is dropping the S on plurals. So they owned so many hat. She had too many wine. I also have a weird tendency of using too many compound sentences with the conjunction but. So for example, the office was ordinarily quiet, but not today. Or Susan didn't want to invite Louise in, but she did. I totally blame Stephen King for that. Tip number 7 is to do your proofreading during your optimal working hours. As I mentioned, proofreading requires a high level of concentration. So for this reason, I plan on doing my proofreading during the times of day when I am my best. Personally, I'm a morning person. As my days go on, my brain slowly shifts away from being an optimistic wonderland of creativity and productivity to a bowl of mashed potato. Oh, hello, Juniper. You guys haven't seen June for a while. She's grown up. Hello, Juniper. Hello, hello. Oh, hello, Sadie. All the doggies are in here now. This is going to be very interesting. So as I'm only proofreading for an hour or less a day, I plan on scheduling that time before the rest of my workday begins. And now the dogs are play fighting, so that's all I've got for you. But before we go, I'd love to know, how do you approach the proofreading of your manuscripts? Are there any tools or tricks that I didn't mention that work for you during this stage? I'd love to know, so please leave a comment below. And I'm going to get rid of these dogs before we finish this video. If you'd like even more writing advice, you can of course check out the other videos on this channel, or you can go to my website, taraeast.com, and dive into the archives. While you're there, please consider joining my email newsletter. When you do, I'll send you a free gift, plus you'll get a newsletter in your inbox every single Thursday morning, including a note by me, links to that week's blog and video, a quote of the week, some resources I've recently loved and think you will too, as well as some other information that I only share via email. Thank you so much for watching this video. Now please go and make some time for writing, because the world actually does need more books.